Why do we have to subdivide it?
I don't know, that's what I'm trying to find out.
Do you want me to call him really quick? I'll text
Joe's
him.
texting.
Oh, okay.
Joe's texting.
Okay. Joe will know before we get to, I'll hold that off till the end. So then we can. Okay. Are we ready? Everyone ready? Okay. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Please stand to salute the nation's flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In attendance this evening are Supervisors Fisher, Agizio, Cassiola, Fleer, and Barney. In addition, Don Januso, Township Manager, Jack King, Director of Planning and Assistant Township Manager, Sean Bukovinsky, Chief of Police, Bill Baudorf, Director of Public Works, Fire Chief Noel McMullen, Engineer Joe Seitz of Gateway Engineers, and Attorney Gretchen Moore, Township Solicitor. Comments will be taken at this time for any item to be voted on by the board that appears on the agenda. General township comments or questions will be addressed before the close of the meeting. Please step to the microphone and state your name and address for the record.
Candy Wather, Elm Drive. I have a question. We used to, for many, many years, we received verbal reports from the Public Works Director, the solicitor. Sometimes Chief Bukovinsky had information for the public to know about. I was wondering when we would ever start hearing any of those again.
They provide them to us every month in written form. If it's something that we feel is important to call out, they call them out as part of that. This is why we added in the new at the beginning discussion items. Those are kind of items that any one of our professionals want to specifically call out, but a lot of it is just reiterated, the same thing month after month, kind of working on this, working on that. But they always have the opportunity, if they feel like something is important, to list it under discussion, which is an item that needs to be talked about but will not be voted on.
Okay, because my question about that is for at least the last, I'll say 3 months, nobody has said anything other than the engineer about issues that are ongoing. We have no idea what our solicitor is doing, and now tonight there's a settlement agreement.
A settlement agreement for what?
For the Durbin?
That's actually not going to be on the agenda this evening. And actually, I don't,
Still on here, though?
it is on the agenda, but it's not far enough along. It's going to be tabled tonight. It's not far along for us to actually vote on. That's what, so items that she's been working on, she can't go into detail on it anyways at a public meeting because it's ongoing litigation.
Well, I understand that, but she used to give you, okay, she'd say, oh, well, I have a court date on such and such a date in this matter.
I don't ever remember specifically calling out dates.
Or she sometimes would give you case law if she was, talking about something, she would give you something. I personally am interested in that kind of stuff. I like to know what our solicitor is doing. I mean, I'm not asking her to tell me every little detail. I understand the nuances of the legal conflict of interest, the confidentiality, all that kind of stuff. She didn't ever give any of that. She just gave a brief synopsis of what she's doing. You guys are all well aware of what is going on. Like Mr. Bottorff used to say, hey, we're working on Klinger Road. This is what we're doing. Maybe somebody in the township would say, okay, we don't want to bother with Klinger Road. We'll go a different way, so not as to interrupt them. Very rare. We heard about a couple times about the parks because Mr. Fleer brought it up about the roofing. That's the only way we knew what they were doing over there. I don't understand why we can't give 2 or 3 little issues about what's going on in the township.
Let me speak to that real quick. We now have a website, and impact statements you put on the website that may affect the motor and public. Jack posts those up himself.
Okay.
So we didn't have that in the past.
But that's only about the motoring. That's not like what you were doing in the parks or anything like that, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Well, we do have stuff
It's listed.
On that website. Okay.
something that's going to impact the folks in the park. We'll have Jack post it up. Yes.
Okay,
The intent of limiting it to actually active things that they're working on in discussion items or agenda items is to keep the meeting within a reasonable amount of time. If we sit here and discuss every single little thing that everybody's doing, our meeting would last till tomorrow at 7 a.m.
well, our meetings never lasted till tomorrow at 7 a.m. when they did it before.
Candy, you and I
Okay,
were,
my next question, I'm moving on. I had a couple questions about Silver Creek. I noticed that you guys listed I don't know if you want to call them conditions or whatever that you guys agreed to. However, there's nothing on here about the extra parking that Mr. Fleer and Mr. Cassiola discussed at the last meeting. Is that no longer going to be optional? Their parking is going to be down there, there's mailboxes, and that's going to be it? There's not going to be any additional parking for visitors?
Has to be additional parking.
Well, I'm just asking because it's not listed on, like, the things that you guys discussed are listed on here. You guys discussed an impact fee at the last meeting. You guys discussed about the entrance road being wide and et cetera, but there's nothing on here about the additional parking. So I didn't know if that was going to be included. I'm just asking if it is.
it's not going to be included as a condition. I will confirm, there was a verbal agreement for them to add that as part of the site plan. I don't have it in front of the site plan in front of me, and Dan isn't here. We can confirm that that is in fact included in the updated site plan.
Okay.
Yeah, she's right. If it's on the plan, the site plan or on the drawing at all, then it doesn't have to be a condition because it's already on there.
So it's
Can-
on their new one that they're submitting,
Well,
is that what you're saying?
We will confirm.
Okay, because, all right. The other thing is the emergency access. Is that going to have a gate?
The emergency access at Silver Creek?
Yes.
Yes.
Who will have a key to that gate?
Yeah, it is.
Anybody here from
Eh,
Rhonda?
Silver Creek the emergency access will have a gate, correct?
Yes, I mean, it's what the township prefers.
Yeah.
But typically, there's a gate.
It's the same, Candy, as like the gate at Muse or any other gate. All of the emergency, so our police, fire, EMS, everybody, somebody in the township, Bill, will have a key to that gate. So it can be accessed by any first responder or emergency personnel that can get there.
I mean, they might need to answer this. Is there a reason why it has to be an emergency access and not an additional, just regular entrance?
Isn't it because of the slope of the?
It's the grade of the road. There's
Because you're using the current driveway. Do you mean where it connects?
Excuse me, would you mind, sorry, go ahead.
Do you mean where it, like, not, it's already, you're already using the current driveway. So would it be the slope where it connects to the plan is the problem?
the emergency access is the current driveway, not the main entrance.
Yeah.
And it's getting up onto the hill and into, because having emergency access to the entrance doesn't make any sense. We need it to be the interior. And you have to go up the slope, and the requirements are 15 degrees or less. And this is the only way to get it.
Oh, okay, because I thought the emergency access, when you came down that driveway, was at the end of the driveway. I didn't realize you had to go up a hill. Oh, okay. That's why I didn't understand the emergency access. The other thing is you talked about an impact fee. In your ordinance, on the agenda, it states that the impact fee is going to be used as deemed necessary by Cecil Township for any purpose. I thought the original intent of that impact fee was if you guys needed to do something about the underpass or whatever else, it was going to be used for that. I don't think that this should be worded as any purpose that the township deems necessary. That can be anywhere in the township.
So here's the thing, we don't want to limit ourselves. It will be used for that area. It will be used for either the underpass or the intersection of Rising and 50. But if you know as well as I do that if we put very specific language in, then we're tied to what that says. And what if we find out a year into the construction of the project that, oh shoot, something we didn't even think about is a way bigger problem than what we anticipated. So by saying any purpose, we're saying, hey, we're going to rely on our professionals, Bill, our engineers, Gretchen, to determine what the best use of those funds are.
Okay.
Excuse me, that was actually Rhonda's name.
Yeah.
Miranda said that the township could use it for any purpose they chose. Okay.
And we're grateful. Yeah, we're grateful, and it's not going to be used for, we're not going to use it for Lawrence or over on the Peters side of the township. It will be used for something in that general area, but we don't want to tie ourselves to one specific thing right now.
Okay. I was just wondering, because that was what was discussed, was about the underpass area. The next question I have is about the fire code amendments. Is there any reason why this is coming up now?
There's actually a
We're
lot of
going to
reasons.
get rid of section 107 and 103.4?
There's actually a lot of reasons those are coming up. They've been issues in, as we said, when we repealed the International Fire Code before, we've had issues with specific things. And we want the ability to be able to bend when we need to or make adjustments when we need to. And we found these to be problems in the past. And we can, when we get to that actual line item, we can let Mac address that in a little bit more detail. But we didn't just wake up one day and decide to do it.
So at some point, you've repealed the IFC?
Oh, yeah, we didn't want June. We announced the intent to repeal and replace. Right. Announce the intent to repeal and replace. So we're adjusting.
I mean that, when you say repeal and replace, do you mean repeal and replace the whole thing, or repeal and replace certain parts of it?
Sections that
Just
we
certain.
feel, yeah, and we asked the board at that meeting when we announced the intent to repeal and replace, to talk with MAC about things that they've had issues with. MAC has talked to Dawn and Jack and various members and Bill to find out what we've had issues with, and Liz, to see what needed to be adjusted. When we initially adopted it, we adopted the whole thing in its entirety without really understanding what every line item of the code meant.
So then, the reason that we've never adopted the newest edition is,
We're currently 2015.
yeah, which is a little old. There's been several editions since.
It actually, not just Cecil, but other local municipalities are just now in the process of looking into, I believe, 2018. So it's not uncommon, you know.
To operate under one that's 7 years old, when there's two other editions out ahead of it.
Not uncommon.
Okay.
And Candy, if I could just add something that Cindy was kind of mentioning. You know, the IFC, the code is extremely valuable to us, but it's also, it's very detailed.
I know, I read the first 30 chapters today.
You say you read the first 30 chapters?
Yeah. I read through. I have a lot of,
Understand it all?
no, I don't.
Yeah.
But I'm not an attorney, so I wouldn't expect to, and I'm not a firefighter, so I wouldn't expect to.
A lot of it is up for interpretation. You know, you could have three people read and get three different views on what that particular section says. So, just to sum this up, you know, we're not just throwing the code out. We're not just throwing the code out. We're just simply doing what's best for our community, we believe. And that's kind of leaving it up to the board, to the fire chief, to the police chief, whatever, the EMS folks, you know. So we're not just throwing it out the window. We're trying to go at it, you know, a common sense approach to what's going to help our community grow. It's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean.
Well, no, it's not. My only question was this section is to have, in my understanding of, and I'm not, you know, a genius at reading that, this section refers to having two access points into a
Not two access points.
firefighter, it says firefighter, it's approved firefighter apparatus roads. Access roads is in the
The
code.
way that the code reads is that it's two full entrances and two exits. That's not, the topography in Cecil Township does not always allow for that, which gives us the ability to kind of do what we did at Silver Creek, where we're having one primary entrance and egress, or for cars, and then one emergency entrance for emergency personnel. We did it at Muse, we did it at Silver Creek, we've done it a bunch of other areas, but it gives us the flexibility when necessary to make those changes. We've had plans not come to fruition, not just residential plans, but commercial developments not be able to go into locations that would be great for the township because of that. So we want the ability to flex. We're not saying we're never gonna do it. We will do it as often as possible.
Also, the entrance is 3 lanes wide.
Yeah, your main entrance is, but what I was referring to is what it said in that IFC, and that's what my question was. The part that you're getting rid of,
We're not getting rid of it. We're pulling it out and giving ourselves the flexibility to determine what fits best for our township.
okay.
Wait, I'd like to add to this also, that if the fire code requires it, then we have to, and it's a part of our ordinance, and we have to enforce it. Where if we take it out, we can still enforce it if our township engineer is convinced that they can put a second full driveway access or just an emergency access, and we can require it as a condition. So if, like, we ran into that problem on Cool Valley there, that it's a cliff on both sides, if you've ever driven through that. Where our engineer was lucky that the developer and they were able to come up with a place where they can squeeze an emergency access up through there, which, it'd be gated, but we're happy that they were able to find something up that cliff side. It wouldn't be good for just a day-to-day, everyday traffic access, but it will be in case there's a blockage or something at their main entrance, then at least they have a way to get out. All the residents can get out that way, or EMS can get in that way.
But to Tom's point, Candy, you don't want to throw away the whole Cool Valley development, which has big potential for the township, just because it's not possible because of topography to have a full second entrance and exit.
Okay, I'm just saying, I didn't see anything that said a full second entrance when I read it, so maybe I'm reading a different version. Could possibly be.
Maybe because
but-
you read 30 chapters in one day.
No, I made sure that I read this one 3 times, so I understood it. The other one is about the cul-de-sacs. Why are we doing the same thing with that, where
It's the
are
same,
currently like 96 whatever feet for the trucks to turn around in if it's 150 feet long? Are we still gonna do that if we deem it necessary?
if it's
just
possible.
not-
If it's possible, yes. But like, what if, when it's, to Tom's point, if it's in the code written that way, then we're stuck to that word for word. What if they can get a cul-de-sac that's 94 and a half feet, but the code says 90, the International Fire Code says 96? We can't deviate from whatever that code says without it. We're gonna get as big of cul-de-sacs, sorry, as we possibly can, but we don't want to limit ourselves to a certain set number, because if we can get this close, we don't want to throw away a whole section for
My
nothing.
question, I understand that. I just didn't understand that if you took it out and you, quote, repealed it, that you were going to be able to have the ability to come back in later and say, we can still do this. But
Yeah,
since
there's
Tom said
nothing.
you can, then,
Yeah,
okay. I just figured once you took it out, that they could come in and say, we don't have to adhere to it, no
Nope.
matter what that code says.
nope, not at all.
Okay.
This code works perfect in Kansas and Iowa, when it's tabletop flat.
Yeah,
There is a different topography.
right.
Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other citizens' comments? Hang on one second. He was coming to the podium, and then I would ask that you come to the.
Hello, Al DeSallo from 175 North DePauli, and I have a question about the Silver Lane project also. In here, the wording is that you have the evergreen buffer on the developed side or the adjacent side. I want to see if you can remove that statement and just put it on the developed side. And you are maintaining a 50-foot buffer zone, correct?
Yes.
Why do you want it to not say adjacent property side?
Because if they try to put it on my side, that means they're going to come in and destroy the buffer zone to plant those trees. If
Well, they
plant it
can't
on-
come onto your property without your written.
But I mean, you'd go through the buffer zone to plant it, and then you would tear those trees down and everything. I'm trying to maintain that buffer zone, all the trees that are there.
That is our intent.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. There's just, if
I'm
it would
afraid
be,
that if we take out that wording, that you're not gonna get them where you want. Maybe we clarify it and say, developers shall provide evergreen buffering along the development side or adjacent side of the property without disturbing the buffer zone, or something along that line. Like
and here's my other issue with that, is if they would happen to put it on my side, okay? The people that move in there are gonna encroach on that buffer zone as far as they possibly can. But if you have the tree line there already, they won't do that. This gives the wildlife that are there now somewhere to stay.
So, personal experience, but I disagree. So I'll give you an example in my yard. In my backyard is the wood, what my kids call the woods. It's that buffer zone that sits behind my house. We didn't touch the tree line, neither did our neighbors next door, but the 3 houses next door to that completely came in and took out the tree. But they took it out because it was what you view as undisturbed woods. I think if we have them plant trees along, and we could even post it if we need to make sure that the people that live in that area understand that that's the buffer zone. But I want sort of like a definite line that people know that they can't cross.
Right, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, so,
And it is a 50-foot buffer zone all the way, correct?
yes, around
I
the,
know that at one point it was 50 to 25 in one point.
I don't have the plan in front of me. I want to say it's 25.
It's a 50-foot buffer that is going to be.
Property line to property line.
And it's the property of the homeowners association. Association documents, it says that it stays open space, not go in there and destroy or cut any trees.
That's what I'm looking for.
Are we good then?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Okay.
I do have one other question. This may sound stupid, I'm not even sure
No,
who
you're
I
fine.
asked this to. Who do we have to talk to get a stop sign installed on Morganza and Cecil Henderson?
That nice guy right in the middle.
Okay,
Bill, raise your hand.
that's all, I'll
If
talk to
you,
him.
I have your contact information. I will talk to Bill and Dawn, and we will reach back out to you to see if we can make it. Wait, what did he say?
Actually, a request has to be made to the state
But
by
from
the
you
township
guys.
on behalf of the
Yeah.
township.
From Bill and Dawn.
Okay,
What's the intersection again now?
it's Cecil Henderson and Morganza, coming down Morganza Road, because it's, when you come in, you gotta really turn your head around to look, and they fly down that hill.
Right.
Okay.
But the request has to come from us, which is why talking to these 2 nice gentlemen will be who you want to talk to.
Thanks.
Thank you. And go ahead, sorry. I'm sorry. We can bring the microphone to you.
Dale DeLugas, 4039 Sir James Drive in Windsor Woods. I've been here politicking for Windsor Woods, North DePauli Road situation for quite a while. And just as a follow-up to the young lady's earlier discussion about the emergency access to Silver Creek, I haven't been able to find the emergency access to Windsor Woods. I was wondering where we go in that situation.
There is not an emergency access at Windsor Woods. There is not one,
And why is that?
because the board at the time that that was approved didn't require it as part of the development.
So it's not required by that code that we were discussing?
At the time Windsor Woods was approved, the International Fire Code hadn't been adopted.
I thought they said that was 2015?
That's the date that that specific code was written. We adopted it in 2018, 2019. So we adopted,
You said
maybe
2016.
2017. Yeah. We adopted the 2015 code after it was already written. So we
Yeah,
didn't
Dawn
adopt
just
it.
said 2016. I think Windsor Woods,
He said 2018. I don't remember what year we adopted it, but it was after 2015, and it was after Windsor Woods had already been approved as a plan. So we can't, Windsor Woods, the developer of Windsor Woods was already grandfathered in to the plan that was approved. We can't then, after we adopted the International Fire Code, go back and say, whoops, well, now you have to, because the plan's already been approved by the board.
so this board doesn't think it's a problem then?
No, this board does, and this board, for the past, I'd say 4 or 5 years, every plan that's come through we've required an emergency access.
Understood,
Which is
understood.
why we're requiring it at Silver Creek, we're requiring it at Cool Valley, we're requiring it, but the board at the time that was approved didn't require it, unfortunately.
Very unfortunately. There's a lot of homes up there, a lot of people up there. If anything happens with the intersection there of North Apollo and King Edward Drive, we got no way out of there.
Right, which is why we require them going forward.
Okay, I still see it as a problem.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, thank you. Before we get on to the agenda, I want to take a quick second to recognize Randy Roberts. This is his 43rd year with the township as a foreman, and he's been amazing. So while he isn't here this evening, I still think he deserves the opportunity to be recognized because 43 years is a phenomenal career here. Also, briefly, take a second. I'm going to give you some friendly advice. Take a second and take a walk through Cecil Park. Our Public Works guys have been super hard at work down there getting things ready for the Fall Festival and have done an absolutely phenomenal job on the concession stand down there. It looks, I mean, better than it ever has. So Mark, Bill, thank you. Looks awesome. They're currently working on the stage at Supervisor Aguizio's request, and that will be done, fingers crossed, for, yeah, we're getting there. So it's looking very nice. Yeah, they really do. We have, yep, we have the best Public Works guys. Yep, thank you. Thank you to everyone.
Cindy, can I just tell you that according to your website, it was adopted
Okay. I'm not gonna, I didn't remember. I can remember a lot, but I didn't remember that. Moving on to announcements, the Cecil Township Board of Supervisors will hold a workshop session to consider the comprehensive plan on Monday, September 12th at 7 p.m. in the meeting room in the municipal building. Don't forget to go to bingo at the Volunteer Fire Company on September 18th. Admission is $5. The car cruise that was originally scheduled for mid-August had to be delayed because of bad weather. It is now scheduled for September 18th. It's always a fun time. My kids love to go, so go check that out. The Cecil Township Historical Society will hold their monthly meeting on September 21st at 7 p.m. Don't forget about the upcoming Fall Festival. It's Saturday, September 24th from 11 to dusk, and Sunday, September 25th to 10 a.m. to dusk. Jack, isn't the opening ceremonies at 10 on that Saturday, or is it at 11?
Opening ceremony is at 11 on Saturday.
Go ahead.
Opens 10 on Sunday.
Okay. Last year was absolutely phenomenal. Our Parks and Rec Board did an amazing job, so please come check it out again and support the township. And then there's a listed dates that Jordan Tech Service will be at the municipal building for collection of school taxes. Discussion items. These are items that will be discussed by the board that will not be voted on this evening. The first discussion item is discuss additional work to Burnside Road, Muse Bishop improvements being conducted by the McConnell's Trail Development. Joe?
Thank you, Cindy. Once when the McConnell Trails development was approved, there was proposed work to be done at the intersection of Muse Bishop and Burnside Road. It was to increase the turning radius so that when a vehicle was coming and making a right-hand turn onto from Muse Bishop onto Burnside, they'd have more room to swing around there and not drag bottom. And once the contractor got out there and laid the slope back, and we had some meetings out there, Bill was out there, Frank was out there, we looked at the grade of Burnside Road. It's a little hard to see, but I put the profile up there. Right at the intersection of Burnside and Muse Bishop, the grade is 15%. And I think there was an incident on Friday in which a box truck got stuck trying to make the turn off of Muse Bishop onto Burnside Road. So we got a meeting out there about 3-4 weeks ago. The developer, Andy Hutchinson, was there, his designer, and we talked about the possibility of lowering the slope for the vertical clearance on Burnside Road. So the developer hired Gateway to complete the evaluation. We were able to use prior survey information from his surveyor, and we were able to lay out a vertical curve here that shows an 8% grade coming right off of
Muse Bishop Road, cutting the knob off of there, lowering it down to 13%, and then transitioning back into the top about 50 feet down from the intersecting street at the bend that takes you back to the private road. So, you know, in looking at this in the interest of trying to move this project along, the developer had already committed funds to make improvements to McConnell Road. McConnell Road has really stood up really good during the construction. Dan's looked at it, I've looked at it, and it might be a better idea to take some of that funding and switch it from that improvement over to Burnside Road and make this improvement so that we'd have a lesser slope on it, be safer for vehicles making the turn off of Muse Bishop onto Burnside Road. The value, it's pretty much a trade-off when it comes to the value. I shared my quantities with the developer. He's currently in the process of getting prices from his contractors to complete the work. So,
I don't think McConnell's Road held up that great. It's because our guys kept patching it.
okay.
And I don't want to see takeout away. And Burnside Road, all you did was move that intersection to the left.
Well, that was
You
what
need to take some off the inside on the right.
we're taking it off the inside at the slope, Ron. It's gonna shift over to have more of a curve there. But this profile here is to lower the grade so the vehicles can negotiate coming around there without any difficulty, with less difficulty, and get the vehicle off of Muse Bishop and onto Burnside out of the traffic.
But I thought part of the developer's deal was he was going to repave McConnell Road and do this. Improve the intersection.
I'm not familiar with all the fine details of the developer's agreement, maybe.
Is that what it was,
Yeah,
Bill?
sure.
Yeah, I'm here to answer any questions. So, Cindy, similar to what you said previously, this was a previous board. So when we were negotiating or having a conversation about our PRD approval, there were certain things that were requested when we talked about doing things off-site. One was the intersection at McConnell Road, which we did. Number 2 was Burnside, which we're looking at, and number 3 was milling and then just resurfacing McConnell Road. That's the only part of our agreement. What we discussed is, we discussed this, I mean, this is going back 5-6 years. We discussed, do we want to cut one out? Do we want to expand the scope? And at that point, the answer was no, and we're doing all 3. So this is a dramatic increase in the scope of work that we're looking at for improvement number 2. So that's where the discussion came up, is that do we want to put the funds towards that? We ran every kind of cost analysis for realigning that road, and it was just cost prohibitive. That's how we ended up with the repair that was approved.
Joe, my question is, though, you said it's a trade-off? I mean, all that work on McConnell, it pulls all that money off of McConnell to do this, to put this new grade in here, to lower that grade? Is that what you're saying, that it takes all the money away from McConnell?
Bill, were they supposed to do stormwater management and that? Stormwater management and that on McConnell Road?
Not that I'm aware of, no. Not on McConnell Road. No, there was no stormwater infrastructure plan.
But they agreed to add that third lane, which they've cut out already and laid its slope back. But
Right.
I know that on a profile here, I know that was never part of the discussion at the time, so that, I know that wouldn't be on them.
Right.
But the only thing that we have to look at is the extra cost is to cut this road down now, the existing part, and change the profile. So, I
Correct.
mean, you're saying just changing that profile is gonna take all the improvements we were gonna
Tom,
get
you're
on McConnell.
acting like though there's there are significant funds, but it's also gonna be super expensive to change the profile. It's not gonna
Well,
be
that's
a
what I'm asking.
minor.
Well, maybe my choice of words is not correct, Tom. Maybe I should say taking some of the funding
All right,
from
well, that's- all
McConnell
right.
and applying it over here to Burnside would be more appropriate. I know what I
You
said.
have to
You're right.
understand though, Tom, it's gonna take a chunk of it. Like, it's gonna take a significant chunk of the improvements from McConnell's to make this repair.
I mean, part of the improvement that we're talking about is expanding the area another 100 feet so that we can transition that, and that's a full removal of the road and replacement.
Right. Tom, I just want to make sure you understand, though, it's not some. Like, some to me is a small amount. Like, this is going to be a big chunk of the funding that was supposed to go to McConnell that's now going to be done and it needs to be done. Like, I agree that it needs to be done, but I just want to make sure you're not a couple years from now saying, wait a second, why didn't this happen at McConnell?
I'm not asking in a couple of years, I'm asking now. He says he'll get us those quantities. The question was answered.
And keep in mind, this, you look at the profile, we're only talking about 250 feet from the intersection of Muse Bishop up to the next intersection. So we're not talking an extended length of roadway.
Right. Any other questions? Thank you, Andy.
Okay.
Number 2, discuss the request of Hope Learning Center to occupy space as a school in the SD district.
Okay. What we have is this request for a school called the Hope Learning Center that would like to occupy the former Stealth Building at 333 Technology Building Drive. A school is not a use by right in the SD commercial land use category. We've had other schools that are in the SD zoning district in the township, and there's also been requests in the past from previous boards to permit a school in this category. So it's your position, it's up to you to decide whether or not you want to permit a school to occupy space in the SD commercial land use.
Yeah, Cal was approved to go in there. Waynesburg University was approved to go in there. It was on the same process that someone came along. I guess when South Point permitted use was first listed, nobody thought if anybody was going to ask for a school in the industrial park. But so far, a couple people have asked, and they've been it's been a good response. It's nothing detrimental to have those when Waynesburg was there or Cal. So I don't see anything wrong with this either.
I don't either, because, number one, that Stealth Building is really empty. There's a lot of room up there, and why can't they utilize some of the space in that particular building with this Hope Learning Center?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it. If the board doesn't have a problem with it, then we can move forward. I don't think it's an agenda item.
Yeah, it's on the agenda.
On the
It's on
agenda.
you, yes.
Right.
Okay. Oh, there it is, 177. So then when we get to that, we can grant the permission to it, for it to be allowed. Okay. Thank you. Moving on to resolutions. 171, 2022, consider application 2022-0026 for the Lewis, PA Turnpike Lot Line Revision, location 201 County Line Road, R1 Low Density Residential Zoning District, applicant PA Turnpike Commission. The Planning Commission reviewed this application on August 18th, 2022.
Yeah, I can bring it up, not a problem. Here's the plan that shows the subdivision of the piece of parcel from the turnpike and conveying it to the adjacent property owner. The representative from the Turnpike Commission at the Planning Commission meeting had indicated there was an error in the land when there was the subdivision to build the turnpike. So this is just a conveyance of property back to that property owner that they had requested.
Well, he also said the Turnpike owns it, but it's excess property that they don't need, and there was a settlement with Mr. Lewis.
Correct.
Family on that.
Yes.
Yeah, I've been out there several times, and they've actually given them the property.
Okay.
It was mad, they was waiting on the township to sign something, a deed or something. I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second? Second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0. 172, 2022, consider application 2022-0022 for the McConnell's Trails Phase 3B subdivision plan, location McConnell's Trails, planned residential development, R2 medium density residential zoning district, applicant McConnell's Trails. The Planning Commission reviewed this application on July 21st, 2022.
Good evening, Grant Showering with the developer representing McConnell Trails LLC. This is the request for final approval of the last phase of McConnell Trails, which is 3B. On the screen before you is the approved PRD. The section where 3B is located is here. It is comprised of 33 single-family lots that are 62 feet wide, as well as open space and then a stormwater management facility. This road does connect down to Burnside. That's a connection to Burnside that's occurring during 3B. We did receive a comment letter from Gateway Engineers, and we believe that we have addressed all of those comments. We have submitted revised plans with the updates that were necessary. There was one additional item that we will update on the plans, which there is a manhole located on the low side of the stormwater pond. We are going to convert that to an open grate manhole and then also install a berm there. There was a question about overflow of the stormwater management facility. We ran an additional analysis that if there was a 100-year storm and the outlet structure was clogged to make sure that it had a path to go. So we ran an analysis where in that instance, it would be collected by the berm that we are going to install and go into the open grate manhole that's already proposed below that facility. So with that, if there's any questions, I can answer.
Yeah, what about the houses that were getting flooded down below?
That's what the analysis was prepared for. We went out, we walked the site, and looked at the path of water and where it would go. In a 100-year storm event, which that facility is designed to control.
No, I'm talking about that have already flooded. Mr. Masco's house, the house down below, their driveway's been washed out several times.
That I'm not aware of.
Pardon me?
I'm not aware of that.
I'm sure Andy's aware of it.
This wouldn't be impacted by the Masco's house. I've met with the Masco's several times. At the last time, about a week ago. They've had no issues since we've filled the area and are directing all the water to the pond. And we've handled their driveway and gone above and beyond to make sure that everything's rectified.
If we have an issue with the Mascos, then we need to have Gretchen and Dan address it with Andy. That's unrelated to this section of the plan, so we have to be careful not to tie them together. Do I have a motion to approve this? Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
No.
Oh,
3-2. 173, 2022, consider setting the date for a public hearing regarding conditional use application 2022-0027 for the Cool Valley Illustrative Site Plan, location Lewicki Road, C1 General Commercial BPD Business Park Plan Development, and IHPD Interstate Highway Plan Development Zoning District, applicant TNR Properties. The Planning Commission reviewed this application on August 18, 2022. At the request of the applicant, we're looking at September 19th at 7 p.m. Does that work for this board? That night will also be, not only will it be, we have to make sure we advertise it correctly, because not only will it be a conditional use application, but it will also be a special voting meeting. We're going to vote on it immediately following the meeting because the applicant's under time constraints.
when's that meeting set for?
September 19th. Does that work? At 7. Does that work? Okay. That's what? That's what, because of advertising? Yeah, that's why I did that.
because of the application date.
Right, that's why we did that. Yeah. Okay. Moving on to 174, 2022, consider application for payment number 6 for the work completed to date for the Cecil Township Public, oh, wait, is that the one? Hold on. Nope, we're good. Cecil Township Public Works Facility Early Site Package Project in the amount of $67,949.97 by Stewart Contracting, Inc., including change orders 1 and 2.
I put the letter up there, you know, all the work's been completed and payments recommended.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Darlene, did you say yes? Darlene? Darlene? You said no?
No.
Okay. 4-1. 175, 2022, consider the final release of financial security for 130 Technology Drive in the amount of $22,920.37 as recommended by the township engineer.
We completed a final inspection of the site based on their request, and all the items have been addressed. So recommendation is in order.
Is there a second? I'll second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. 176, 2022, consider application for payment number 1 and final for Russell Standard for 2022 pavement maintenance contract A project in the amount of $228,000. Joe?
Excuse me, it should be $228,200. Yes, this is the payment 1 and final for the work that was completed on South Point Boulevard from Organza Road to North Technology Drive. This was the fiber reinforced seal coat process. All the work's been completed. We had no issues, and we recommend payment.
Joe, did we have it budgeted like $383,000?
I believe we
scope
did.
of work?
Yeah, I believe we did have a higher budget.
Just, did we shorten up the length of it, or just?
No, when their bid came in better than their budget number they were giving me for unit prices at the time, so it worked out to our advantage.
Okay, then we have a surplus.
Right.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Do I have a motion?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Passes 5-0. 177, 2022, consider the request of the Hope Learning Center to allow for the use of a school in the SD district in the Stealth Building at 333 Technology Drive. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
5-0. 178, 2022, consider the award of the general contract for the Public Works Building to, is it UHL or Yule? Yule. Construction Company in the amount not to exceed $4,791,950, pending review of the township solicitor.
Well, good evening, everybody. Just to kind of reiterate on the letter that we provided Friday. So bids were accepted on June 9th for this project. We've worked with Yule to look and the township to look at some value engineering options and also some reduction in scope. If you read through the letter that we provided on Friday, that kind of lists out all of those items. What we've looked at in the market, we don't see pricing coming down anytime soon. It seems to be relatively flat at this point. Yule, we know, is a good contractor. We've worked with them before, and it's our recommendation to make award to Yule.
So the public understands the bid came in higher than we expected. So when he's saying value engineering, Ron and Tom Casiola sat down with our engineers and kind of worked through some changes that could be made to the building to reduce the cost. And that's what that new number is that's here. It's more affordable to us while still allowing our public works guys who are in desperate need of a new building to get that building that they desperately need. And we met with them when? Friday? When did we meet at the site?
Friday.
Friday, thank you.
Friday at Klinger, yes.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't remember. Supervisor Barney, Supervisor Fleer, and myself met with Gateway Engineers and Mike Stewart up at the site to kind of walk through what's going on up there currently on Friday. And to have any of our questions answered, just to make sure that we're moving forward in the best way possible. I think it was a very good meeting. I think it answered a lot of questions that some of the supervisors had, and hopefully you feel confident moving forward. Any questions for?
How much difference is it from the original bid?
It is just shy, including, so this does include award of ad alternate 1, which was the additional square footage from the building. So it is, I believe, just shy of 900,000 less than what their bid was.
So the change prior to ad alternate 1 was $1 million change, and then we added the square footage back to the building, which then changed it to 900,000 approximately, correct?
Sorry, could you say that again?
So the original value engineering came in at about $1 million worth of changes, and then we added back square footage, which then added approximately $100,000 back to the cost of the project, which brought the value engineering change to 900,000, yes?
So the memo that we had, was that about a month ago, that
Give or
had the million?
Yeah.
And this letter kind of hits on that a little bit. That was for the overall project. So we still do have a plumbing contract, a mechanical, an electrical, and a fire protection contract to bid. So some of those items, such as one of them is elimination of the restroom that was in the storage garage. So in terms of the general contractor, his overall cost on that is fairly low, whereas we've got some savings coming when we did the estimates on the plumbing side of things. So that's where the million that changed to 900 is. There's still savings from those estimates on the MEP with this reduced scope as well.
Is it still going to be 52 weeks?
The last I had heard a couple weeks ago, it's come down a little bit from that, not drastically, but I thought it was in the 30s.
And just to clarify, there is no square footage reductions for that in the value engineering. We didn't cut the size, cut some height down and other things.
Correct, yeah, it's the base bid that we bid, and then also the ad alternate, that's that additional square footage on the storage garage.
Correct.
Okay, now the other problem is that I still was uncomfortable with is the site is complicated due to the, whatever you want to call it, cold blossom, soakstone, fool's gold, pyrite. What are we going to do? I mean, how are we going to make the residents on Klinger Road be very comfortable with this situation, to being that it was opened up and the site was opened up to the oxygen and so on and so forth, as far as getting wet, arsenic, and everything else that can come from the pyrite, fool's gold, cold blossom, soakstone, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, so we talked about this on Friday of last week when we met on site. I just want to be very clear that the pyritic material is not an environmental hazard. It's not a health hazard. This site was, with being over an acre disturbance, we were required to get NPDES permits. So there was an elevated review through the Conservation District and the DEP. If there were any health concerns at that point, those would have been elevated and those would have been dealt with at that time. The issue with pyritic material is it's expansive. So, everyone thinks that this is a junk site because of pyritic, because of anytime expansive material gets wet, it rusts and it expands. So we can't build foundations right off of that. What we did in the initial bid and design was we clay capped it. So essentially what we're doing is we're sealing all of the pyritic material that's going to be exposed with about a 12-inch layer of clay, which is impermeable, which will keep the moisture out of the pyritic. Again, it's not a health hazard at all. I want to be very clear about that. It's more of a construction issue that, is.
Okay, so how long has that been opened and exposed? being that pyrite can contaminate the groundwater along with other toxic metals such as arsenic, a poisonous element. Coal veins often contain pyrite and arsenic. And if that's water hitting that, and we got springs up there on that site, and they're not just wet water springs, they're springs that run constantly, how do we know that this is definitely not, water does find its way through a lot of.
That's true. One of the general construction practices that we find when we encounter a spring is we put spring drains in. Change order 1 reflects that, where we hit a spring. We redirected that into an under drain that got directed around our site. The last thing we want is any moisture at where our foundations are going to go. So that is something that, we have inspectors on site making sure that they are capping that as it's exposed. I do want to say, I want to be very clear that the DEP does not find pyritic material as a contaminated health hazard.
Can we also clarify, because she's mixing, she did the same thing on Friday. Just because pyrite was found doesn't mean that arsenic or other heavy metals were found, correct? We did core sampling, they found pyrite. Pyrite is expansive, which means you shouldn't build on it, and it doesn't mean that it leaks into the groundwater or gets into the air and contaminates the air. It just means if you put concrete on it and it expands, the concrete's gonna crack, which you don't want to spend money putting concrete on and having it crack. So we're handling that. But I think you're reading from something that you got off the internet or Googled, and you already explained to
I'm also reading off of what Dan Deseroff said. Site is complicated due to pyrite material, which expands when exposed to air and water.
Yep.
This was understood when the project was designed and bid unit price items and included in the bid to address the complications. But why?
I just want
why
to say that
didn't
the
we know that?
Hang on a second. We understand that. There's pyrite there. There's
Okay,
no
all right.
question that there's pyrite there and that we need to handle
Well,
it.
I
But
think
you're
that-
also
right.
rolling in and saying arsenic, other heavy metals, blah, blah. I don't want people to hear that and leave the meeting and think that we're ignoring other heavy metals or that there's potential groundwater. Mike was very clear about that on the meeting on Friday. I want to be very clear about it in the public today. I'm going to bite my tongue for a second. I was going to say something, but I'm going to bite my tongue and keep it to myself. But I don't want you to set a public outcry that there's some sort of huge environmental hazard there. There isn't. There's pyrite there. We know
And
about it. We're
There's a coal
addressing it.
stream, and
We're addressing it. It's not in any way dangerous to the residents in that area or to the Public Works employees that will be there.
And just so everybody knows that they are undercutting the building 6 foot. They're undercutting the whole parking lot a foot. They're gonna put clay on it, and then, what did we figure, 6 to 8 inches of millings?
Yeah, about 6 inches of millings.
Yeah.
we're also going to
And
make.
there's pyrite pretty much anywhere you dig around Pennsylvania.
Yeah, pyrite is a very common material. I just want to elaborate. When Dan wrote his letter about complications, it was more so just to make everyone aware that we're not going to have any surprises whenever we bid this out for the high construction costs. That's where the complications arise.
Okay.
I would question your clay and 6, 8 inches of millings.
You would
The
question it.
millings is more so just to keep the site stable over the winter.
Muddy and tore up.
And those millings are actually from Public Works' stockpile. So that was something we talked about on Friday, just to keep the site clean until the next contractor comes in and
You don't
we
think
open the
it's
site back
enough,
up.
or you think it's?
I just don't feel it's a stable base to build on.
What's that, millings?
Millings with clay underneath it.
That's not what they're just doing that,
they're still
correct?
gonna put
It's
down
not
two.
In the
just to
parking.
build on, it's to keep it clean.
In the parking areas, he said it would be clay with 8 inches of millings. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, the contractor's still going to have to meet compaction requirements whenever they come to pave. So,
The clay is just so we're not dragging mud in there. I mean, the millings, so we're not dragging mud out on the road all the time.
Clay has a tendency to work its way up to the surface, though. Do what you want.
Any other questions by the board?
What would you rather see there, 2A?
Is there a motion on 178 to award the contract for the Public Works building?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 No.
No.
3-2. Hold on one second. 179, 2022, consider the award of Contract 2 Site Utilities for a Public Works Facility in the amount of $107,610 to J. Stewart Excavating LLC pending review of the Township Solicitor.
I think we need to table this,
Okay, why?
because we just got about doing the subdividing.
I know, we had an adjustment. Thank you.
Do you have any idea what it is, Dawn?
We can award it. I don't want to table it for a whole month. We can award it pending the review by Gretchen, and she'll look into the
Joe, did
subdivision
you find
issue.
anything else?
Yeah, Ronnie had asked me before the meeting, why we were subdividing it, and I reached out to Dan here, and the reason that the subdivision has to occur, it's part of the PUC tariff rules in order for them to fund the project. I mean, the water line is supposed to go to the center of the property where the building is located, so by doing that, it limits the frontage of the property along the road, and it makes it a better situation for them to contribute more to the project. So we don't need the entire property to be at one parcel. You're creating a parcel for the building to stand on alone by itself, even though you will retain ownership of everything. And that's per the PUC rules, and obviously the water company's going to pay for all the water line installation and save the township around about $80,000.
So we don't need to award that contract?
We won't, you're not awarding the water line, you're going to award the sanitary sewer. Go ahead.
Just real quick, so this is contract 2 for phase 2. This is the extension of
Right.
the utilities. So the base bid was bringing the sanitary sewer to the site. There was an ad alternate that was for the water line. So based on this new information that we have on Friday, with PA American taking care of putting in the water line, the recommendation is now just to award the base bid, which is for the sanitary sewer extension to the site.
Okay.
And that's the $107,610.
Yeah, and
Okay.
originally, when we were paying for it, the water company originally normally wants you to run a main water line extension to the center of the parcel. And the parcel was 66 acres, and it would have run all along Klinger Road for an area where we didn't need. So they says if it was parceled off for just the building we wanted, they're going to come into the center of the new parcel we're creating. And it'll be about 5 or 6 acres around that, I assume, around the Public Works. We still own the rest of it, but it's going to be 2 or 3 parcels there on the same tract. And that way the water company is willing to do it. And it's like Joe said, it's saving us $80,000 that we originally anticipated would have to pay for the water line extension.
Makes sense. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have moved and seconded? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Passes 4-1. 180, 2022, consider application 2022-0017 for the Silver Creek Planned Residential Development on the following 5 conditions. 1, developer shall contribute an impact fee of $1,700 per developed lot payable at the time of the application for the building permit. The impact fee may be used as deemed necessary by Cecil Township for any purpose. 2, developer shall provide evergreen buffering along the development side or the adjacent property side as decided in the field to protect adjoining properties along DePauli Road along lots 271 and 288. Just to be clear for the record, that's in addition to the buffer. That's not included in the buffer. 3, culvert to install crossing over the creek shall be a conspan structure reinforced concrete as approved by the township engineer. 4, entrance road shall be widened to 3 lanes. 5, emergency access shall be installed.
I do have to make a comment. I think Joe was looking up for us to see if he could see those additional parking spaces that Mr. Fleer talked about. And I don't know if you haven't found them, we can just put that as a condition as number 6. If you haven't.
I don't think I had the most current plans in the file, Tom, so go ahead and make it a condition. I know
Yeah, we'll
there
just
is
make
some excess parking shown on that plan, but I don't think I have the current plan in the file.
Isn't that it right there?
There was 2 areas that I seen on the plans. Are there more than 2 areas?
No, we didn't want more than 2 areas, because remember though, these are single-family homes.
I think there was one right,
And one right
here where I
here.
got the cursor,
Yep, and right up above, keep going up, do you see it, right here?
right there.
Yep,
Yeah,
I think that's
okay.
sufficient, so I think
Yeah,
it's on the
but
plan.
That's fine then.
What about way out here on the other end? Let me go, all these houses, no additional parking?
You don't, remember we talked about that though, Ron, because we had this discussion about the police and the ability for people to park temporarily on the street if they're having families over.
Okay, I have a question about that. If there's that many homes and Christmas, holidays, how many cars are they going to park along the road? I mean,
It happens every year in my neighborhood. Not every single home has everybody in their family at their house. Other people go to some people's houses, other people come to your house. The point is, you're taking away a lot or taking away development for parking. I wouldn't want, if I lived right next to a parking lot, people are just gonna use that to park cars in extra spaces. I wouldn't want to have just random parking throughout a neighborhood, and I live in a neighborhood. I think you're over-exaggerating the need for multiple. I think there's 2 if you really need it. You also have the ability to call the police and park on street temporarily. I think it's more than sufficient, but that's my opinion.
my estimation, there's just too many houses put on too small of a lots.
Well,
Or
that's a whole other
property.
issue. We understand that's how you feel.
that's just too many homes. 239 homes on what, 45 acres?
That's a totally different issue.
That's
And you have
what
every,
a PRD is.
yeah, you
Yeah.
have every
It-
right
it-
to vote no
It
against
appears
something.
this drawing does show those parking spaces we talked about.
Right.
One other thing on item 1, I think where we said the township may be used as the township deems necessary for any purpose, I think it should say relating to traffic impact mitigation. That's what that impact fee has to do with traffic. I mean, it shouldn't be for parks, it shouldn't be for anything but mitigation, whether it's on 50 at the 4-lane highway, at the underpass on Ricing Road and the railroad, on, what's the road that goes underneath?
Creedmoor?
Creedmoor, improvements there. But either way, the development is making an impact on traffic. That's the biggest issue for even all the neighbors above it. So I think that when they're given that money, it should be towards some kind of impact mitigation on the
That's fine.
traffic.
I'm fine. So
So-
amending number 1 to say for traffic, for any purpose related to traffic mitigation.
Traffic impact mitigation.
Right. Is that a motion, is that in the form of motion? You're making a motion to approve this?
Yes.
Is there a second? I'll second it. Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No.
I couldn't hear it. Darlene said no. Ron, you said yes.
I said, yeah.
Frank, you
Was
said?
that on just the amended motion on item 1?
No, this is
The
for
whole
the whole
resolu-
thing. This
Whole
is,
resolution, no.
okay, so 3-2. 181-2022, consider authorizing the Cecil Township Historical Society to raise money and accept donations for the restoration of the Cecil Jail. They are working towards restoring the jail that's been in that location for a really long time. We're working through the process of getting a deed so they can own it. But while that process is going on, we want to give them the opportunity to raise money and get to work, and I think it's a really awesome thing they're doing. So this motion just allows us to retain ownership, but allows to fundraise for the purposes of redoing that jail, which is super cool.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Passes 5-0. 182-2022, consider amendments to the Cecil Township Fire Code originally adopted by Fire Ordinance 12-2016 on October 3rd, 2016. Whoops, see, if we would have just read there, we would have known the date. Officially adopting the 2015 edition of the International Fire Code with removal of Section D-107 regarding one or two family residential developments where the number of dwelling units exceeds 30 shall be provided with two separate and approved fire apparatus access roads, and the removal of Section D-103.4 regarding dead-end apparatus access roads in excess of 150 feet and turnaround widths, and the removal and amendment of Section A-103.1 regarding general administration powers, and the removal amendment of Section A-103.2 regarding appointment of a new fire code official by the fire chief.
I'd like to make some comments, or ask some questions, more or less.
Go ahead.
That first one, removal of Section D-107. What will be the new number of units be, if any?
It's at our discretion. So if we want to make everybody that comes forward have two entrances and two exits, then we can do that. If
So
we
in other
want-
words, what industry standard or study was utilized to determine if the new number is going to be? So in other words, we make that upon whenever they
us.
come in?
It's kind of like what I just explained, Arlene, like Coal Valley, Coal Valley. They came to us. Under this current ordinance, we couldn't approve their plan because there aren't two fully functioning entrance and exits. We don't want to turn away a whole development like Coal Valley because this one little section of the code. We are working with them to come up with the absolute best that we can as far as entrances and exits goes, but we have that flexibility and ability to work with them to make those adjustments. It's the same with Silver Creek. The topography was very difficult there. It would have been very difficult to have two full entrances and exits. We worked with them to come up with what we can. I can't speak for everyone, but I believe the intent of this board is to make sure we have those entrances and exits. But this gives us the flexibility to make those adjustments as we need to going forward. And we now have a fire chief in place, and we can rely on him and our engineers to come up with the best for every situation. Tom said it best, like this works great in areas where it's flat and perfectly level. We don't live there, so it doesn't work that well for us.
So we're going to have a meeting with Cool Valley to really iron
Yeah.
more.
We set the conditional use hearing for September 19th at
But they
7.
did find one. They do have one,
Yes.
an emergency access in their plan already.
When we go
well,
through
I've
the
seen-
conditional use hearing, if that is something that's super important to you, then we make that a condition as part of the conditional use hearing.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Maybe I can refer this to Mac. In a cul-de-sac, how much room do you need to turn a truck? Like our standard cul-de-sacs are usually 80 feet across. Is that enough room?
It depends on the size of the apparatus. And, something, Frank, it's kind of like the entrances and exits. The fire department, and I believe the board, is always going to strive to have as big a cul-de-sac as possible.
Because most places you go everywhere, a standard one is 80 feet across. I mean, very rarely are they larger than that. I mean, I just want to know, is that usually enough room for a,
I can't just come out and say yes with every piece of fire apparatus. But yeah, whether it's Coal Valley or any of the other proposed plans, we're gonna look at those cul-de-sacs and make them as big as possible. Not to get back to Darlene's issue, but we're gonna look and say, look, the fire department wants a second exit. We want as large of an area as possible for us, So, can I give you an exact number? No, I can't. Depends on the size of the apparatus.
maybe try one of them out, let us know. One of our cul-de-sacs.
You can take Frank for a ride.
Unless there's somebody parked in the cul-de-sac in a circle, I mean, yeah. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions, Darlene? Okay. Is there a motion?
So moved.
I'll second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No.
4-1. We're going to table 183, 2022. We thought the settlement agreement would be farther along at this point, but it is not ready to be voted on at this right now. 184, 2022, consider authorizing
But you need
gate.
a motion if you're going to table it.
We're not tabling it. It's off the agenda for now. 184, 2022, consider authorizing Gateway Engineers to prepare and solicit for bids for the installation of a storm water pipe along Windcrest Drive as set forth in the above settlement agreement upon receipt of fully executed settlement agreement.
Right, so the little bit of background on this one is that the settlement agreement in the Durbin matter, which again, you have insurance counsel who is managing that case, but the settlement agreement, as you're all aware, will include some kind of specific performance by the township, very similar to the specific performance that was offered many years ago. To do that, obviously, it would have to be bid out, and the purpose of this particular motion is just to allow Dan to, time is of the essence, our understanding from the plaintiffs. So this allows Dan to at least get those bid documents ready, so when that settlement agreement is ready, and you all vote on it, and it's fully executed, then you can go ahead and bid out that portion of the project.
Any other?
So nothing would happen formally, nothing would be bid until that settlement agreement is fully
That's not
executed.
what this
To
solicit
prepare
bids.
and solicit for bids, yes.
solicit for bids, so we're gonna get bids, but we won't award until.
He will, once there's a fully executed settlement agreement, he can then solicit for the bids. But right now, he can start getting those documents ready.
We won't have to come back to it to solicit. He can have them prepared and then put them out as soon as it passes.
Correct.
When are we going to get the settlement agreement?
We're hoping soon. My understanding is that your counsel is working with, I think all the defendants might be on board at this point, and then they have to finish negotiating with the plaintiffs. So I would, if I'm guessing, which I hate to do, I would say within a week or two.
Being that this was back in 2014 when it
It's an
started?
old case, Darlene. Yes.
Oh, jeez.
Been a long time. And it's funny, because we're actually back to the exact same agreement that we offered to them in 2014, and they wouldn't
But how
accept.
much money has it cost us to just
It's not-
linger this on?
Well, it's not us, though. We
No.
offered it. We were willing to move forward, and I don't want to say their
Insurance
names.
carrier
You do have insurance coverage for this case. So your counsel, it's insurance counsel that was
So we're
selected
not
as
going to
being
do
paid.
anything until we know exactly how much money is going to be involved for the settlement agreement.
The township is not offering any money. The township is only offering this specific performance piece. And I did circulate that to you also. At least you can see what it's going to look like. I don't anticipate that piece to change much at all, but it's just not ready in final form to come to you to really approve.
So moved.
I'll second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
4 and 1 abstention. 185, 2022, consider certification of the 2022 MMO for the Uniform Pension Plan at $659,026. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
5-0. 186, 2022, consider certification of the 2022 MMO for the non-uniform pension plan at $312,158.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
5-0. 187, 2022. Consider the Board of Supervisors minutes from the Monday, August 1st, 2022 regular monthly meeting.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
5-0. 188, 2022, consider the general fund invoices from August 1st through August 31st, 2022.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. Anything the board wants to bring up that didn't get discussed during the meeting? Okay, moving on to citizens' general comments and questions. Anybody have a comment or question of something that didn't appear on the agenda? If you just step to the microphone and, it's a race. We'll get to you.
Okay. Kenny Strain, 4022 Sir James Drive. My question is, at the last supervisors meeting, There was, I don't know if I would call it a commitment, but there was going to be an update about North DePauli Road, about what the current situation is, about how soon something's going to happen there. I will say one thing, well, Bill and Matt, those guys did a
Mark.
fantastic job,
That's Mark.
or Mark, I'm sorry. He's been called worse.
I'm sure.
But they did an awesome job of putting that drain down
They
there.
did a very nice job.
Yeah, they did and a lot of that water that's coming down that hill is now going in there. That thing is very professional looking. But that's my question, Ms. Fisher, about, and the rest of you guys, about what is the status of North DePauli Road? Because
For that or Dawn?
we talked about this at the last meeting and said, we'll give you guys some kind of definitive answer.
Okay. We are actively working on it. The scope of the project changed from the original request, and we are working with Range to get essentially them to approve more money, which they are trying to do, for us to do the full project and not, excuse my language, half-ass it.
What's next, Joe? The wall?
And they've been good. So we're just waiting for that. It's not gonna get done this fall, unfortunately. I know, but it's like that decision about whether or not
That's crazy.
you
Well, the scope has changed, I'm sure, from the original.
significantly from the original project.
Because
But-
originally they thought they were gonna start this project in the early spring. And here we are in the fall and it's still, so.
Go ahead, Joe.
Well, let me add to this. We've had some complications in the process of getting the easements. Lenny Desmond died. I just talked with his attorney a week ago Friday and received the signed easement agreement last week, edited so that the executor could sign it, then it'll be forwarded to the township. I have the other easement for the corner property. I think, Gretchen, you have that to review. Once I get that back from you, I'll get that executed. I've got a verbal agreement on that one, and I also have a verbal agreement on the Iski property for the wall that's proposed there. So we're moving along.
moving.
We're moving along. We're not
We're
sitting.
not, we're not
still.
sitting on our hands.
No,
hoping
I don't doubt that. I
comes
just
along.
wonder if you guys had
The
some
easements should have been
idea
thought over a
about
year
when they
ago.
were gonna make that decision.
Not fast.
Huh?
Yeah, it wasn't fast.
The easements should have been done a year ago.
Yeah.
Well, we did.
When
we did
Lenny
it.
was living.
We had a handshake with him. Bill and I were out there, had a handshake with Lenny Desmond, and then he took ill after that and we could not get in contact with him to sign any paperwork. And I mailed the paperwork to him, certified mail, and I got the green card back, and even gave him a self-addressed stamped envelope to mail it back, but never returned it.
Yeah,
Okay.
we are working on it.
No, I believe you. I just,
Believe me, we want it to move forward just as much as you do. We want to put a bow on this and move on.
I understand the plans and specs are complete for it, and why wouldn't you submit bids for the project to be accomplished in the spring? Well, there's still some coordination.
Yeah.
yeah, that pole,
Reset, right? And quite frankly, there is very limited space for them to do that, or I should say, lead in that line for them to move it anyway. So Joe and I looked at this, we looked at this last week when we were out there, right after we completed. Joe and I were back out there, and that driveway approach comes, we're gonna move it towards the abutment. Doesn't really do much as far as widening that road very much. The ideal, and I know the property owner's not agreeable to this, but ideally, what I'd like to do, and I've discussed this with them, I'm not on board with it, Joe and I looked at it, is to have their driveway approach that North DePauli Road at a 90-degree intersection. Come, instead of up around like this, come out and intersect it.
Right.
Including the radius looking left and right coming out of the driveway. I'm not on board with where that driveway's gonna remain. I really am not. One of the problems that we have with that also is this Verizon pole. There's no room to move it. There's no place to put it, you know. With that revision to that driveway, that would give us some room to place that pole. It would actually be in that driveway where it's currently located. So there's still some issues out there, site distance issues out there. One of my concerns is this: if we agree with the property owner to leave that driveway where it approximately is situated right now and move it closer to the wall. The fact that we're actually moving it closer to the wall implicates us as far as the sight distance is concerned. Because it does not meet the sight distance standards for an approach onto that roadway. It does not. We've been out there, we looked at it, and the sight distance is not there. The only way you could, there's no way that you can relocate that driveway and have it comply with our current standards. And once you move it, it has to comply. So, again, Joe and I discussed this last week. The ideal situation would be to relocate that driveway, have it approach the North Pauly Road as a 90-degree intersection to the road. And that way, improvements sight distance would be they would happen. So, again, it's a multifaceted issue, driveway location, and the pole that sits within several feet of that driveway right now.
Okay, well, there's other circumstances that you guys are having to deal with. It wasn't part of the original,
I see what you're saying.
when they looked at it originally. It's just getting worse and worse down there.
From where I sit, we're gonna do this, we're gonna put money into this thing, let's do it right.
Oh, amen. I agree. Okay,
It's gotta be done correctly.
all right. Well, thank you.
We're gonna be involved in it also as far as the relocation of the driveway. That relocation does not adhere to the current sight distance standards that we require everybody else to do.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cindy, I have one question. Did you say that you were waiting to see if we can get more money from Range to do so, in regard to what?
They are, I don't say responsible for, they have agreed to give more money, or give money for the relocation of that road, or for some work along that road. I have reached out to our contact, and she's working towards some additional funds for that.
Okay. The other thing is, and we've been kicking the can down the road on this, about recognizing Jason and Range for the $14,000 grant. We'll never bring them in front of the board and,
I asked them about that. It wasn't coordination on our part. It was coordination between Jason's office and Range. So we did that post that was shared between Jason and Range and the township. What was it, like 2 weeks ago, Bill? I forget. 2 or 3 weeks ago at the request of their offices. It wasn't us. We had planned to have them here when, Jack?
back
May.
in April?
Yeah, in May, and then Jason couldn't come, and then Range couldn't come. Like, it wasn't, we've opened the door every meeting.
I mean, the reason I'm asking this is because every time I pick up the paper, Range Resources giving somebody money, and they're there with a big check and so on. I have yet to see them do that
Well,
here.
we did better than post the check. We actually posted the pictures of the swings and the
Well, I did,
actual
I
park.
carried on with that also, but
Yeah.
I'm saying that it's still, wasn't any observer and reporter or anything like that. And what I do, there's a big thanks goes out to Range Resources for everything that they've contributed to the Parks and Rec. I don't think that our Parks and Rec would be doing as well or have all the monies that they've been, that Range
I mean,
contributes
don't get me
to.
wrong. I'm grateful to Range, but I think it's undercutting our Parks and Rec a little bit to say that.
Oh, hey,
we
no,
owe
I'm not
thank you.
undercutting our Parks and
Yeah,
Rec. They
yeah.
do a fantastic job.
Right.
I've attended everything that they have done. Even
Right.
this, even the things that are, the Shetland Rodeo, unbelievable, those little kids.
Well, that wasn't Parks and Rec.
I know.
Just for clarification, that was not a Parks and Rec
I know
organized
it wasn't,
function.
but it was unbelievable. Those kids were
That
really
was
something.
organized by someone in Fort Cherry. That's different. Anyways, yeah, it wasn't that we shunned them or told them not to come. We just couldn't coordinate when to have them here.
Okay.
Anything else?
Nope.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead, sorry, you had a.
I'm Nancy Marshall, 45 Tomahawk Claim Lane. You were handed 3 pieces of paper earlier